My ex told me to get married. Too bad I had married his uncle. Welcome to Daily Storyvids. Please like and subscribe to my channel for more exclusive stories handpicked by yours truly. Now back to the story. Chapter 1. Vivian, 5 days from now. Be there to sign the marriage license in the Hill Estate. I promised you the wedding of a lifetime, and I'm keeping my word. I stared at my phone. Dante Lucchesi couldn't be serious. We ended that 5 years ago. He laughed low and careless, like I'd said something adorable. Called it off, another laugh. I never agreed to that. You heard about the wedding and came running back. Relax, you're still the bride. But Sienna, been with me for 5 years now. I'd like to think you're done throwing a fit. Once we're married, I expect you to make peace with her. I hung up. The nerve of this man. I married his uncle, Vincent Lucchesi. I had Vincent's children. I was already the donna of the Lucchesi family, the real one. I threw Dante out once. I wasn't about to go dumpster diving for trash. The phone wouldn't stop buzzing. I silenced it and tossed it on the sofa. 2 a.m, someone started hammering on the front door. Vivian, open the goddamn door. Are you done with this little act? I yanked the door open. Dante's fist was still raised. He stumbled forward, nearly clipping my shoulder. He caught his balance and looked me over. Black silk slip, hair down, bare face. This is the dump you've been living in since you left. I didn't bother answering. He pushed right past me. Look, you're back now. I'm willing to let the past slide. But you owe Sienna an apology. His voice hardened. That slap, you crossed a line. I wouldn't have made it through these 5 years without her. She's bent over backward trying to appease you, Vivian. When you officially join the Famiglia, I need you to stop turning everything into a war. You'll have the title, you'll be Donna, but you leave her alone. A laugh cracked out of me, the kind that only comes when you're too furious to do anything else. A side piece who weaponized her tears to claw her way up, and somehow, coming out of Dante's mouth, she sounded like a saint. I met his eyes. What makes you think I'd ever marry you, Dante? I let the silence sit for a beat. And who said I'm still single? His eyes flicked to my bare left hand, a sneer pulled at his mouth. All of Chicago knows you're mine, Vivian. You've had that temper since we were kids. Nobody else would deal with your shit. And let's be honest, the Morty name doesn't carry the weight it used to. Who else would have you? I smiled, eyes on the floor. Our engagement had been the biggest power alliance Chicago's underworld had seen in years. The Mortys ran the Eastern Port shipping lanes. The Lucchesis controlled the casinos, the arms pipeline, and the shadow banks. Everyone called it the perfect alliance. It was arranged, but what we had felt real. He'd pulled me close on the highest terrace of Hill Estate once and made a promise. When I take over as Don, I'll give you the biggest wedding this city has ever seen. Then he hit a civilian during an underground street race, Sienna Vale's grandmother. In her final moments, she begged him to look after her only granddaughter. So Dante brought Sienna home. From that day on, she wound herself into every corner of my life, and I could never pry her loose. She wore my jewelry, sat in my chair, gave the soldiers orders in my name. Then she destroyed the one thing I couldn't forgive, the blue diamond brooch my mother left me. I slapped her across the face. And Dante pulled her behind him, right there in front of the whole commission. She has nobody, Vivian. Can't you just cut her some slack? She's practically a kid, that's it. You're going to be Donna. Why do you have to stoop so low as to bully someone like her? After that, he told me to cool off. His idea of cooling off was taking Sienna to every banquet, every sit-down, for 3 straight months. By the end of it, all of Chicago was whispering that Dante had a new fiancée. So I called off the engagement and left. I met Vincent in Cresthaven, Dante's uncle and the man who actually ran the Lucchesi empire. He sat dead center at a private auction and won the bid on my mother's blue diamond brooch, the same one that had been missing for years. My nephew isn't worthy of a Morty daughter. But the real Donna of the Lucchesi family was always going to be you. On our wedding day, he slid the black diamond ring onto my finger himself, the one only the Donna of each generation is allowed to wear. After that, the inner circle of the outfit knew. I was Vincent, the real Donna of the Lucchesi family. What the hell is so funny? Dante's jaw tightened. I blinked out of the memory. You, Dante, I'm laughing at you. He gave me a look, the kind that said he'd known it all along. Same old Vivian, stubborn as ever. Doesn't matter, after the wedding you'll get over it. He reached for my face. I drove my heel into his instep. The door slammed shut between us hard enough to rattle the frame. I pressed my back against it and spoke through the wood. Dante. My voice was steady. Pray you don't piss me off again before Vincent gets back to Chicago. Chapter 2. Dante glanced down at the scuff on his shoe and laughed. Fine, I won't push tonight, since you're playing hard to get. He stayed on the other side of the door, voice dripping with the kind of patience he probably thought was charming. I'll have the wedding dress sent over tomorrow. Sienna picked it out, look perfect on her. You two have similar taste, and you don't look like you've gained any weight, so it should fit. I closed my eyes. Every ounce of Morty discipline in me was the only thing keeping me from ripping that door open and going for his throat. I was starting to regret turning down the soldiers Vincent had tried to assign me. Coming back to Chicago alone had been a mistake. I kicked the door hard enough to feel the shock travel all the way up my leg, half a second of silence on the other side. That temper, Vivian, you've really got to work on it. If you're going to be Donna, you can't keep acting like this. You could stand to learn a thing or two from Sienna, honestly. My voice came out cold enough to cut through the wood. If Sienna's so perfect, marry her then. I meant every word. A fraud and a fool belong together, better they keep their mess to themselves. His laugh filtered through the door. There it is, you're jealous. I told you it's only ever been you. I'm not like that with Sienna, just be a good girl and try on the dress. His footsteps finally faded. I sagged against the door, and the only thing I felt was the sheer absurdity of it all. My parents were bringing the kids back to Chicago in a few days, Vincent too. When they arrived, Dante would finally see how pathetic his little delusional fantasy had been all along. Lucchesi soldiers showed up with the dress first thing the next morning. White box, silver ribbon, the Lucchesi black rose stamped on the lid. I didn't open it. The dress Vincent gave me had been hand-sewn by an old Italian tailor, my name and the Lucchesi crest embroidered into the lining of the skirt. I'd already worn the dress that belonged to a real Donna. Why would I touch something a side piece tried on first? Dante's right-hand man, Carlo Rossi, was the one holding the box. He held out a gold-stamped invitation. I glanced down. Sienna's name had been printed in the space for the bride. Someone had scratched it out and scrawled Vivian over it in pen. I laughed and tossed the invitation back at his chest. Wrong bride, Carlo. Bring the dress and the invite to Sienna. I'm sure she'll be delighted. Carlo's expression darkened. Cut the act, Miss Morty. This was supposed to be Dante and Sienna's wedding. He wouldn't have changed his mind if you hadn't shown up out of nowhere. Sienna's a laughingstock because of you, and you're standing here acting above it all. Doesn't that make you sick? Typical, an idiot like Dante could only surround himself with bigger idiots. I turned my back on him and walked away. There was one place I'd genuinely missed in all the years I'd been away from Chicago, the Gilded Table. It used to be our family spot back when my parents were still stateside. We went there for everything. I drove, but the car died halfway there. I had to call a cab for the rest of the trip. A black Bentley pulled up to the entrance the same moment I did. The door swung open and out stepped Dante. He spotted me and raised an eyebrow. You throw my dress back in my face, and 5 minutes later you're showing up where I have lunch. Make up your mind, Vivian. This hot and cold act is getting old. I walked past him without a word. He caught up in 2 steps and grabbed my wrist. Drop the act, I saw you pull up in a cab. Is the Morty family bleeding cash so badly you can't even afford a car? Don't come in here trying to keep up appearances, and don't come crawling to me when the bill comes. I looked at him and bit down on every word I wanted to say. The Mortys had handed the port operations to frontmen a couple of years ago. My parents were in France with the kids now, barely paying attention to Chicago anymore. But stepping back wasn't the same as falling, and it sure as hell didn't mean I couldn't afford lunch. I pulled my wrist free, slow and deliberate. Dante, you really need a shrink. He tilted his head like he'd just solved some great mystery. You still remember I hate shrinks, see you do care. Forget it, I'll let that one slide. Actually, your timing's perfect. I've got some of the guys inside Sienna too. Apologize to her in front of everyone and we can put this whole thing behind us. I stopped mid-step and pulled back. Not a chance. Even the best food in Chicago wasn't worth sharing a room with him. I turned to leave. A voice drifted from behind me, soft, almost sweet. Vivian. A pause. Are you leaving because of me? Chapter 3. Sienna had changed too. 5 years ago she'd stood behind Dart in a washed-out dress so pale it was almost white, head bowed, wearing that look, like the whole world had wronged her, and she was too gentle to say so. Now she was draped in designer clothes from head to toe, a sapphire necklace from the Lucchesi jewelry line around her throat, heels high enough to turn her into a different woman entirely. Her gaze flicked to Dante first, then to me. Her eyes were already rimmed red. Vivian, is this still about the invitation? You were gone for 5 years. When Dante said he wanted a wedding, everyone just assumed it was the invitation wasn't meant to humiliate you. If you need someone to blame, blame me. I couldn't help it. I spent 5 years watching him destroy himself over you, drinking until he ended up in the ER, calling your name when he was too far gone to know what he was saying. I've always known it was you he loved. So I'll back off. One tear slid down her cheek, right on cue. Dante pulled her against his chest without missing a beat, and the look he turned on me could have frozen glass. I really thought 5 years would have changed you, Vivian. But you're still the same, still going for the throat. I held his gaze. Did I say a single word? He hesitated, his voice dipping lower, but he didn't let go of Sienna. You don't have to, the way you look at her says enough. She didn't grow up like you, Vivian. She didn't have a family name or a safety net. Everything she has, she clawed her way to. You've been a Morty your whole life. You don't understand what it feels like to be that exposed. You owe her an apology. A smile cut across my face. 1, she's no blood of mine. 2, whatever she's been through, that's not on me. 3, do you really want me to tell everyone standing here how her grandmother died? The blood drained from Dante's face. Enough, his voice had an edge now. If you ever want to be part of the Lucchesi family again, you won't bring that up. Ever. The private room door swung open behind them. A handful of guys in expensive suits filed out, sons of allied families, every one of them, the kind who swaggered through Chicago's underworld on their fathers' names. Dante, is she starting shit again? You disappeared to Europe without a word, and Dante nearly drank himself into a hospital bed over you. He'd be dead in a ditch by now if Sienna hadn't held him together. Sienna's the one we respect. For 5 years she stood by him. She looks more like a Donna than you ever did. Doesn't it embarrass you, crawling back to steal someone else's wedding? Sienna pressed herself tighter against Dante's chest, eyes glistening, but I caught the faintest curl at the corner of her mouth. She lifted her wrist, slow and deliberate, and unclasped a black rose bracelet. The mark of the Lucchesi Donna. Dante's mother gave this to me. She said only the future Donna deserves to wear it. So it's yours now. Dante caught her hand and fastened the bracelet back on her wrist himself. What my mother gave you is yours, that's the end of it. Sienna, stop putting yourself through this. Sienna's eyes brightened, and then Dante kept talking. I'll make it up to Vivian later. That pink diamond from the auction last week wasn't bad. I'm thinking of having it set into a brooch for her. As if I needed his jewelry, as if that was what any of this was about. I drew a slow breath and let each word land on its own. Dante, I'm married. I watched his face. And I have 2 children. The corridor went dead silent. Dante let go of Sienna and closed the distance between us in 2 strides. That's not funny. Be jealous, throw fits, I don't care, but don't make up a husband and kids just to hurt me. His voice dropped, like he was rationing out his last scrap of patience. I had people check. The civil registries still list you as unmarried. And children, not a chance. Unless you're telling me you were pregnant with my kid when you walked out. The crowd behind him burst out laughing. 2 kids, come on, she's really reaching now. She knows she can't compete with Sienna, so she made something up. But Sienna wasn't laughing, her face had gone pale. She was staring at me, and for the first time the fear in her eyes looked real. I pulled out my phone to settle it once and for all. The screen lit up with an incoming video call before I could even open my gallery. 2 round little faces crammed into the frame, cheeks squished together, eyes so wide and bright they looked like they ran on sugar and sunlight. Mom. Chapter 4. The 2 of them were practically crawling over each other to get closer to the camera. Mommy, why aren't you picking up? Mom, he took my strawberries. Every ounce of rage I'd been holding on to evaporated the second I saw their faces. My voice went gentle without me even trying. I'll be home soon, okay? Dante lunged for my phone. Let me see. I pulled back out of reach and ended the call. You don't get to see them. His face darkened. Sienna's eyes were already brimming. So it's true you actually have children. Her voice cracked in exactly the right place. Dante waited 5 years for you. How could you do this to him? I looked at her. Save it. Your little show is for Dante, not me. Don't waste my time with it. Sienna went white, her eyes flooded on command. Dante opened his mouth to defend her, but I was already walking away. His voice followed me out. You'd better show up for the wedding, Vivian. I want you to watch. Every flower, every detail I planned for you, I'm giving it all to Sienna. I had Barbies to call and zero interest in listening to his pack of mindless lapdogs. A black and gold invitation had been wedged into my door the next morning. Groom Dante, bride Sienna. I almost laughed. He really wanted me there that badly. Fine, I'd go. Vincent had texted me the night before. He'd be attending his nephew's wedding in person. How could the groom's aunt possibly miss the occasion? Hill Estate was no ordinary property. It sat along the most expensive stretch of private shoreline on Chicago's North Shore, hills on 3 sides, lake on the 4th. The underground garage could fit an entire motorcade, and the east wine cellar connected directly to the old Lucchesi safe house. 20 years ago, this was where the Lucchesis brokered deals, sealed alliances, and buried enemies. When Vincent took over the family, he turned it into the most coveted wedding venue in Chicago's elite circles. The day he married me, he slid the deed across the table in front of the entire commission. A wedding gift for the Donna. Hill Estate had been mine ever since. I kept the estate open for weddings, 1 slot a month, no exceptions. Dante and Sienna's wedding wasn't on my list. I had someone look into it. Just as I'd suspected, someone on the estate staff had taken Sienna's money and slipped her the slot off the books. My estate manager asked if I wanted to shut it down. I told her one thing. Let it happen. I want this wedding as grand as they can dream. 2 days later, I arrived at Hill Estate with a full team of soldiers. The lakeside auditorium had already been dressed for the ceremony, black roses lining the aisle, crystal chandeliers spilling light over a champagne tower. Every name that mattered in Chicago's underworld was in the room. This was never about a wedding. Dante wanted an audience for my humiliation, proof that Sienna had won. Too bad he picked my house to do it in. Sienna spotted me the second I walked in. Haute couture wedding dress, a veil long enough to sweep the steps behind her. The smile on her face was soft, practiced, but the smugness in her eyes bled right through. Vivian, you're already inside. I had someone set up a seat for you outside. Once Dante and I exchange rings, you're welcome to come in and congratulate us. That way nobody has to be embarrassed. I looked her up and down. Who told you this was yours to run? Sienna blinked, then recovered with a laugh. Your place, she almost looked amused. Vivian, wake up. The Mortys have been fadding for years. The only reason you're standing here at all is because Dante still has a soft spot for you. 2 guards approached. 1 look at my face and they stopped dead, dipping their heads. 2 guards approached. 1 look at my face and they stopped dead, bowing their heads. Donna. The room went silent. The smile died on Sienna's face. What did you just call her? Dante reached my side in 3 steps. His jaw was clenched tight. Sienna, not now. She clutched at his sleeve, eyes wide and wounded. She started it, Dante. She walked in here to provoke me. Dante dropped his voice. Vincent is coming today. Sienna's mouth snapped shut. In Chicago, Vincent wasn't just a man, he was the law. He'd purged the disloyal capos at 19, seized control of the Lucchese casinos and docks at 23, and claimed the seat of Don by 30. He was the undisputed king of Chicago. Dante could play games with me all day. In front of Vincent, he didn't dare breathe wrong. That was when 2 small voices rang out behind me. Mom. 2 little boys in matching suits came barreling toward me. My mother trailed behind them, out of breath. Slow down, you 2, this isn't a playground. I dropped to my knees and pulled them both into my arms. Who brought you here? Nonna, they chorused. Dante stared at the 2 boys. Shock and fury warred across his face. You actually brought these 2 bastards to my wedding. My palm cracked across his face before I even thought about it. His head snapped to the side. When he turned back, his eyes were murderous. You hit me. I stepped in front of the boys and looked him dead in the face. Call my children that again, and I'll have someone cut your tongue out. His jaw flexed. You're threatening me over 2 kids nobody ever heard of. I smiled, slow, deliberate. Listen carefully, Dante, these boys aren't nobodies. Their last name is Lucchese. I held his stare and let each word drop like a stone. They are Vincent's sons. And I am your aunt. Sienna's gasp melted into a sharp, disbelieving laugh. Have you lost your mind? What, Dante wasn't enough, so you decided to drag Vincent into your little fantasy. Dante recovered, and the look on his face could have curdled blood. You married my uncle. Watch your mouth before you lie to my face, Vivian. He closed the distance between us, step by slow step. Vincent could have anyone, you think he'd choose you. Nobody in this room is buying that. The crowd at the auditorium entrance parted. A voice cut through the room, deep, cold, absolute. You don't believe her. A beat. Then let me make it clear myself. Chapter 5. The second Vincent's voice cut through the air. The entire auditorium went still, like every throat in the room had been squeezed shut at once. He wore a black suit, his coat draped over one arm. The Lucchese consigliere and 2 enforcers followed half a step behind him. No one moved to stop him. The color drained from Dante's face, slow and absolute. His gaze snapped between Vincent and me, something cracking open behind his eyes. No, that's impossible, his voice splintered. Vivian, did he force you? He was shaking, but he clung to the lie. You've always loved me. You only married him to get back at me, right? I didn't say a word. Didn't he? Vincent was already beside me. His hand settled at the small of my back like it belonged there, drawing me and the children into the shelter of his body. The 2 little ones latched onto his legs without hesitation. Daddy. That one word crushed whatever was left of Dante. I met his eyes. Dante, we ended the day I walked out 5 years ago. I married Vincent because I wanted to. I'm the Donna of the Lucchese family now. You should be addressing me as your aunt. Vincent let out a low laugh, his fingers tightening gently at my waist. Red veins stood out in Dante's eyes. I don't believe it. He jabbed a finger toward the children, voice cracking high. Prove it. The older boy ducked behind Vincent's leg, peeking out with half his face. Daddy, that man is really scary. The little one scrunched up his nose and pointed a tiny finger at Dante. He keeps yelling at Mommy. That's mean. Vincent glanced down at them, voice barely above a murmur. That's because nobody taught him any better. A muffled laugh rippled through the crowd, and died just as quickly. Sienna's face was the color of ash, but she wasn't done. She lunged for Dante's arm, tears streaming, words spilling out. Dante, she's doing this on purpose. She dragged the kids here, she dragged Vincent here, all to humiliate you in front of everyone. She just can't stand that she lost to me. Vincent's gaze lifted to her. What did you just call my wife? Sienna froze mid-breath. Dante stepped in front of her on instinct. Uncle, Sienna didn't mean it. She's the bride today. She's overwhelmed. Vincent looked at him, and there was nothing behind those eyes. No warmth, no anger. Just coldness. You called my children bastards, in my estate. And you let your woman disrespect my Donna. Dante, is this the respect your father taught you? The words were barely out before Dante's father shouldered his way out of the crowd, face already drained white. He'd been entertaining a few of the old capos on the far side, and had caught only the tail end of it as he rushed over. Don Vincent, he lowered his head, voice tight as wire. I failed to teach him properly. Dante whipped around. Dad, what are you doing? He's just my uncle. The slap sent Dante's head sideways. Blood beaded at the corner of his mouth before he'd even registered the sting. His father's voice came out low and savage. Shut your mouth. You insulted the Donna and the young heirs on their own ground. Do you want to drag our entire crew down with you? Sienna was so terrified she forgot to cry. Dante pressed a hand to his face, and something shifted in his eyes, the anger guttering out, replaced by the first real flicker of panic. He finally understood. This wasn't a lover's quarrel. This was a hierarchy. This was power. Vincent could erase him from the Lucchesi succession with a single word. Vincent looked at Dante. Kneels. The word was almost casual, tossed out like spare change. Tossed out like spare change, but Dante's legs buckled under the weight of it. He locked his jaw and stayed standing, stubborn to the last. The enforcer behind Vincent shifted forward. Dante's father grabbed his son's shoulder and shoved him down hard. Kneels. Dante's knees cracked against the stone floor. His wedding suit was still perfectly pressed under the chandelier light, but the handprint swelling across his cheek told the real story. His head dropped, and the words ground out through his teeth. Don Vincent, Donna Vivian. I was blind. Forgive my disrespect. I looked down at the man kneeling in front of me. 5 years ago, he'd stripped me of every shred of dignity in front of all of Chicago. Now he knelt in my estate in front of my guests and called me Donna. I didn't tell him to get up. Apologize to my children. His head snapped up. The humiliation burning in his eyes was almost blinding. But Vincent simply watched him, patient, unmoved. Dante's head finally dropped again. His voice came out raw. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said what I said. The little boy pressed himself against Vincent's leg and tugged at his hand. Daddy, is he going to be mean to Mommy again? Vincent brushed his fingers over his hair, and for the first time something close to a smile touched his mouth. No. He looked up past his hand on his son's head, past me, straight down at Dante on the floor. Because as of today, Dante is stripped of the Lucchesi name. Chapter 6. My original plan had been simple: wait for the ceremony to start, publicly reveal who actually owned Hill Estate, and throw Dante and Sienna out together. I hadn't expected Vincent to fly back early, and I definitely hadn't expected Dante to be stupid enough to insult the Donna and the heirs of the Lucchesi family in a room full of witnesses. In the end, he saved me the trouble. Dante on his knees was already the punchline. Whatever happened to him next was none of my concern. Sienna threw herself into his arms like he was the last lifeboat off a sinking ship. Dante, you still have me, her voice broke beautifully. I'll always be by your side. I'm the only one who truly loves you. Tears poured down her face. Then the speakers crackled. A sharp burst of static cut through the auditorium, and a familiar female voice filled every corner of the room, clear, recorded, unmistakable. Vivian, is she even worth worrying about? So what if she comes from money? I still ran circles around her. All I have to do is squeeze out a few tears and Dante turns on her. What's she going to do besides pack up and crawl out of Chicago? Every drop of color drained from Sienna's face. The recording rolled on. Does that idiot Dante actually think I love him? If it weren't for the Lucchesi money, I wouldn't look at him twice. And that old woman, did she really think Dante hit her by accident? A laugh, bright and cruel. I'm the one who pushed her onto the track right as he turned the corner. Dante was just dumb enough to take the blame. A family this gullible, it'd be a crime not to bleed them dry. The room erupted. Dante looked like someone had driven a spike straight through his skull. Then he turned his head slowly, so slowly, to look at the woman still clinging to his chest. Those words, his voice was barely human. That was you. Sienna's composure shattered. No, Dante, let me explain. Vivian set me up, that recording's fake. She shook her head wildly, tears flying, but Dante had stopped listening. He grabbed her wrist and squeezed until the bones creaked. 5 years, his voice was guttural. You've been lying to me for 5 years. You played innocent, you played the victim. You turned me against Vivian for what? You played me for a fool. Sienna shrieked. Dante, you're hurting me, I really do love you. Shut up, the roar tore out of him, veins standing out on his neck. I wouldn't have lost Vivian if it weren't for you. I wouldn't have crossed Vincent if it weren't for you. You destroyed everything. The madness in his eyes finally cracked Sienna's last mask. She stopped crying. She stopped performing. Destroyed you, a jagged laugh tore out of her throat. Dante, you were nothing to begin with. Take away the Lucchesi name and what's left? I spent 5 years playing nice with you, 5 years. You could train a dog to stay loyal in that time, and you were still mumbling her name in your sleep while lying in my bed. You want to talk about something disgusting, look in the mirror. Shut up. Dante snapped. He seized her by the throat and slammed her backward into the champagne tower. Glass exploded. The tower collapsed in a cascade of crystal and champagne foam. Sienna screamed as she hit the ground, shards slicing into every inch of exposed skin. Blood and champagne pooled together across the floor. The room dissolved into chaos. I raised my hand. My enforcers surged forward and pinned Dante to the floor before he could do any more damage. Vincent stood behind me and let out a quiet laugh. Why did you stop them? Watching them tear each other apart was just getting good. I tilted my head to look at him. That was you, wasn't it, the recording? Vincent's expression didn't shift. I just had someone press play. She said every word herself. She can't blame me for her own words. I couldn't help the smile. This man every bit as ruthless as the day I married him. He leaned closer, dropping his voice until only I could hear. You don't still feel sorry for that fool, do you? I looked at him and cocked an eyebrow. Vincent. Are you jealous? His face gave away nothing, but his hand had already tightened at my waist. Shouldn't I be? He tried to take what was mine 5 minutes ago. I laughed softly. Is he worth being jealous over? In all of Chicago, when have I ever looked at anyone but you? Vincent finally looked satisfied. He leaned down and kissed me. Chapter 7. By the time they hauled Sienna off the shattered glass, her wedding dress was more red than white. She screamed and cursed the entire way. Dante was still thrashing against the enforcers, pinning him down, half feral, trying to lunge after her. It took 2 of them to keep him pinned. The banquet hall was wrecked, but nobody left. The real Don of the Lucchesi family hadn't dismissed them, so nobody moved. Vincent crouched and brushed a stray shard of glass from my heel, tired. I shook my head. I'm fine. He gave a quiet hum of acknowledgement, then stood and addressed the room. The commission stays. The handful of guests who'd started inching toward the exits froze in place. A few of the old capos exchanged glances, jaws tight, but every one of them sat back down. Dante's father had already sweated through the back of his shirt. He knew exactly what this was. Tonight had stopped being a wedding the moment Vincent walked in. This was a reckoning. Vincent took the main seat. I sat beside him. My mother slipped the children out through the back. The auditorium was so quiet I could hear people breathe. Vincent raised a hand. A man was brought forward. the Hill estate manager responsible for approving the wedding bookings. His face was grey, he hit his knees the second he reached the front. "Don Vincent, have mercy. Miss Vale paid me $500,000 to swap the reservation list." His words tripped over each other. "She also had me forge Lucchesi family authorization documents. She said once the wedding went through, she'd be the real Donna and nobody would dare question it." Sienna's scream cut across the room. "Shut up, he's lying." Vincent didn't spare her a glance. Another folder landed on the table. Wire transfers, bank receipts, every dollar accounted for. And there was more evidence that Sienna had been paying off the street bosses, buying loyalty, and fueling the outfit's whisper network, branding herself as the future Donna of the Lucchesi family. All of it prepared in advance. She crumbled. "Dante," her voice pitched into a wail. "Help me, you said you'd protect me." Dante stood motionless, eyes hollow, like someone had scooped everything out from behind them. Vincent finally turned to him. "Did you know she was doing all of this?" Dante's lips moved. A long silence passed before anything came out. "No." Vincent let out a breath that might have been a laugh. The future heir of the Lucchesi family, led around on a leash by a street hustler. "You're a disappointment, Dante." The last of the color vanished from Dante's face. His fists clenched at his sides. "Uncle, You don't get to call me that anymore." Vincent cut him off without raising his voice. Dante's head jerked up. Vincent settled back in his chair, tone so level it barely registered as human. "Effective immediately, you are permanently exiled from Chicago." Dante's father shot to his feet. "Don Vincent, the boy was foolish, but surely that doesn't warrant exile." Vincent looked at him. One look, that was all it took. The man sat down and closed his mouth. Everyone in Chicago knew the truth once Vincent made a decision, he never revisited it. Dante stood there like someone had pulled his spine straight out of his back. His eyes found me, and they were empty. "Vivian," his voice was barely there, "you knew the whole time, didn't you? You watched me become a joke on purpose." I looked at him, and the only thing I felt was how absurd it all was. "Isn't that exactly what you did to me 5 years ago? When you paraded Sienna to every event in the city, did you ever stop to think about how that made me look?" His throat bobbed, but nothing came out. It was Sienna who broke the silence, laughing, wild and ragged, like something inside her had finally snapped loose. "What are you so smug about, Vivian? You think Vincent actually loves you? He married you for the Morty ports and shipping lanes, that's it. You and me, we're the same, just tools the Lucchesi family picked up when they were useful." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The old capos stared at the table. No one breathed. Because if there was one thing all of Chicago knew about Vincent, it was this: no one talked about his Donna like that. Vincent rose from his chair, slow and deliberate. He walked to where Sienna stood and looked down at her like she was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. "You think you're in any position to compare yourself to her?" Sienna shrank back. But Vincent had already turned away from her. His gaze found Dante. "You wanted to know why I married Vivian." He reached out and drew me against him. "Because years before you ever met her, I already knew I'd bring her home." Chapter 8. Dante looked like someone had slipped a blade between his ribs. He stared at Vincent, and everything behind his eyes was collapsing. "Years ago," his voice fractured. "What does that mean?" Vincent didn't look at him again. He reached over and adjusted the shawl on my shoulders, absent, practiced gesture, like he'd done it 1,000 times and would do it 1,000 more. "I warned you the day you got engaged to Vivian." His voice was quiet, almost conversational. "Don't lose her." A low, mirthless laugh. "You were too stupid to listen. While you were busy playing house with another woman, I was the one cleaning up your mess. I found someone to restore the blue diamond brooch her mother left her. I was the one who shut down every rumor about her after she left Chicago. The day you ruined the engagement, I flew to Cresthaven to find her. And you were still sitting in a bar with Sienna." The last trace of color bled out of Dante's face. He finally understood. Vincent hadn't stolen Vivian from him. He'd lost her the moment he pushed her away with his own hands, and Vincent had simply been there to catch what he'd thrown away. Sienna crumpled onto the floor and let out a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. Did you hear that, Dante? You're the only fool in this story. From beginning to end, it was just you. You thought you were the future Don, but Vincent never even considered you. You didn't just lose to Vivian. Vincent looked right through you from the start. Shut up, Dante lost whatever restraint he had left and kicked over the nearest drinks table. Glass shattered across the floor. The enforcers moved fast, 3 of them taking him down before he could take another step. Vincent's patience finally snapped. Get him out of here, put him on the first plane out. If he ever sets foot in Chicago again, shoot on sight. His gaze shifted to Sienna. Forging documents, bribing estate personnel, tampering with an old case. He paused. Take her to the docks. The outfit handles its own trash. Sienna's face went hollow with terror. She scrambled across the floor and lunged for me. Vivian, please, I know I was wrong, just say one word for me. I'll disappear, just let me live. I stepped back, her hands closed on nothing, and she collapsed at my feet. Of all the people you could have tried to play, I was the wrong one. Get her out. Within minutes they dragged them both away. The auditorium settled back into silence. The kind of silence that tried to pretend nothing had happened, except for the wreckage scattered across the floor, the only evidence of the circus that had just unfolded. Vincent looked at me, still angry. I shook my head. I stopped being angry a long time ago. Once you truly let someone go, even the hatred fades. Dante was nothing to me now, not a wound, not a scar, only someone I used to know. Vincent's mouth curved. Then let's go home. I had barely nodded before 2 small bodies crashed into us. Daddy, carry me. Mommy, carry me too. Vincent scooped them up, one in each arm. They had his face, the same dark eyes, the same little frown when they were thinking too hard. My mother stood off to the side, watching the 4 of us, smiling in that quiet, contented way of hers. The night breeze skimmed over the lake. Hill Estate glowed against the dark. This place had been a dream I couldn't reach when I was younger. Then it became the dream I thought I'd lost forever. But I was still standing here, and it was mine. Vincent's arms circled me from behind. Vivian, do you regret marrying me? I turned and caught the look on his face, something I almost never saw. The man who made all of Chicago hold its breath was waiting for my answer like his life depended on it. I smiled, I couldn't help it. I rose onto my toes and kissed him. Don Vincent. The real question is, when have I ever not loved you? Dante once believed the greatest thing that could happen to me was marrying him. The truth is, my real coronation began the day I walked away. End.